So moving on, I think you mentioned about the enterprise and SMB as well. We want to hear from our group if a startup or a founder or builder of building an AI application for SMB versus for enterprise, considering the different sales cycle, is there any advice you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds simple, but usually buying cycles are really different and price points are different. So if you're selling a product that's $100,000, $200,000 versus selling a product that's $1,000 or 500, so you need to have a different motion for that. So I would think about that because usually if something small like that, it can be automated quick, and if it's a longer sales cycle, you have to think about that. So I think in HubSpot we sell the both essentially, so we have a different motion for that. That's one. We're a big philosophy of freemium product, right? So that's how if we get people in our free base, they get to test things out, and then that's a funnel now. And then thinking about touches and nurturing is important. So where you nurture a prospect is different in an SMB than an enterprise. A prospect for an SMB might be like 2 days, right? And a prospect for an enterprise deal might be 3-4 months. The last one is SMB. Sometimes it's just one buyer is the decision maker. Like that's just the president of 10 people or 20 people is the buyer. You go sell to a 10,000 person enterprise, who's the buyer? And you're like, I don't know. They don't even know sometimes, right? So that's like who you're trying to get to use the product, but who's actually going to write the check. So just thinking about those things while you come up with your go-to-market is important.
Actually, there was a question from our audience for startup building for enterprise. They probably only have 1 or 2 customers at the beginning. Should they do whatever these 2 customers tell them to do, or should they actually say no?
You want to answer that? I'll stay away from that one.
Good question. So first of all, just to remind you guys, I work for Informatica. Our target customer base is enterprises. I'll give you 2 pieces of advice if you are a startup trying to cater towards the enterprises. So the first advice I'll give to the startup is don't try to be a platform company. If you try to do a lot of things, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do the end-to-end pipeline, you will lose focus. So be very focused on one particular use case. That's how you will beat company like us. You will be talking in conjunction with companies like Informatica, which is in the play from last 30 years. Say if you are starting a company into data management. So how will you beat a big company like us? Like you need to be very specialized because we are doing 100 other things. You are just focused on one thing. So be very focused. Don't try to be a platform company. The second thing is having customer stories, having the people who you can deploy in the customer side, especially in the enterprises, is very important. That will go a long way. Now to Ruby's your question where you said like if your customer is asking you to do XYZ things, whether you should do it or not. I mean, my point here is as a startup, you need to pick your couple of customers who are your flagship customer. And sometimes what happens is that you build the products for those 2 flagship customers, but always have a product management head. Like that's what we learned in those of you who have taken a business class and taken a product management courses, you'll know that you're not building a product for one customer, but you're trying to generalize it for the rest of your customers. So don't just listen to it and see if there is anything you can do to generalize it. So that would be my piece of advice. That don't take always, many times the customer will ask you to do something, whereas they need something else. So in PMs, we always say that ask that 5 why questions. So I'll also give you the same advice that if they are asking you something, ask those 5 why questions and see whether it still makes sense for you to build that feature.
When an enterprise customer is buying from a startup, and this is to the point about compliance and security, all of that, the thing that they're thinking about is, am I going to get sued if something goes wrong? Because they know that the target is not going to be the startup. The startup has no money. The enterprise client is the one that has the money. So they are taking a big risk when they're working with companies, and they want to make sure that everything is in order because they're going to be the target, not the startup that is selling the stuff. That's one thing. The other thing I would say that can also help startups is thinking about interoperability. Enterprise companies have already invested millions of dollars over a period of time in their current tech stack and tools. The more you can show that you work and play with them well, the less friction there is for them to actually adopt you into their workflows and processes. So it's good to think ahead of time, not only about what your solution is accomplishing, but how does it play with all of the other stuff that they're probably already using, and just build use cases around that.